I grew up like for my first 8 or 9 years or so, it was just me, my mama, my granny, and actually my great grandmother. So that was like my whole world. That and that school and acting, man. That was it. So it was cool. I believe that women have a great ability to communicate and, the ability to kind of talk things out. How you feeling? Actually dealing with those things. It was always an open space for that. And that always helped in the acting business because you need to have something to draw on in order to bring something believable. And if you're afraid of those things or if you're taught that those things aren't as important, because you're a man, it's harder to reach for them. My father had left when I was like 2. So he was out of my life for most of it. So I didn't really get a chance to really know about his background until like much later in life, and I actually was able to sit down and talk with them and figure out like, oh, I actually have family, like there's other Suarez's. I didn't know it. So that all was a big thing, like finding, I actually had family members that lived within like 2, 3 miles of me in almost every city I lived in and had never known. So all of that was like big revelations. And like for me, all I could do was like want it to be part of me and embrace it, Because like I said, I grew up just around my mom for a long period of time. So I didn't know about my father's side as much as I wanted to. I'm really happy to embrace all these new parts of myself that I found because it just kind of makes me feel closer to the world than rather than, farther apart. My mom was a child actor when she was little. Both her and my uncle, they did like commercials. They did like she actually did the first Disney Channel show, which was called Dreamcatchers at the time. But she stopped when she was like 17 because she hated it, and she didn't like the risk versus reward wasn't worth it for her because she hated going to auditions, and you get a lot of no's going to auditions, and she was like, I don't really want to do it. So she stopped when she was 17, and she vowed, oh, my kids will never be actors, all that stuff. But she was working nights over at the Miller plant in West Covina at the time, and I was really little, and I learned to talk. I was like 6 months and could talk. My grandmother was like, this baby could talk. He's gonna be an actor. And so she actually took me on a bus over to my first manager's house because they knew them from when they were growing up. And she's like, hey, I have a talking baby. Like, let's see what we can do with this. And that's where it got started. I literally started off in Pampers commercials, yeah. Like the first one I really remember was doing Jerry McGuire. And that was cool because I got to work with Cuba Gooding Jr., I got to work with Tom Cruise, and I remember working around these people and everybody being like, oh, little man knows that he do it. And so it was like immediately like everybody was so enamored by it. And so everybody treated me really well there, and I just remember going like, this is so cool. Like, this is what I want to do forever, And that's where like I started really just putting all of my time and my thoughts and my energy into it, By the time I was like 7 or 8, like I was already feeling myself. Not feeling myself, but like I knew what I was doing when I got to a set. And like I really did. Like I remember I was 5 years old, and I wouldn't believe this story unless it was told to me. It was told to me at a different time because one of the crew members on Bernie Mac's show was on this set of the story I'm about to tell. So I was like 5 years old. I'm doing the Honey Nut Cheerios commercial. And so I'm 5 years old. I'm eating my bowl of cereal. I say my lines. I'm like, okay, not that one. I did 2 more takes, and I went, all right, guys, we're done. Let's go to lunch. And they go, wait a minute. No one takes no orders from a 5-year-old. So they all went and checked the tapes, and they went, no, actually he's right. Let's go to lunch, everybody. Right. And somebody told me this, years later, like, hey, you booted us to lunch, so we knew you knew what you was doing. And so like about 7 or 8, I was like in the grind of it where it was like auditions. I'd already had my own little like techniques for learning lines and all that stuff, It was one of those things where you really start practicing it and you start just kind of getting the hang of it. There's a certain like, there's a certain feeling to when something feels right, like on camera, and you go, I like that. Like in my head, and I didn't have this terminology there, but I was like, oh, I don't look like a dummy. Like that's always good, you know? I think it's practice, man. I don't think anybody's, I think of course people have predispositions towards things. I think the ability to learn quickly is the talent that you may be born with. But anybody can learn it if they had enough practice, and that's, I put in my 10,000 hours, where auditions, and don't get me wrong, there were some terrible ones in there, you know what I mean? There's some ones that went really wrong, and that I went to do a Mott's applesauce commercial, and this was like, during that time, most of the auditions when you're really little, they don't really give you no lines to read. You just go in and they say, okay, can you say this? And you say that, and you do it. So the audition was, they said, okay, we want you to say, I love applesauce. And then you're going to take a big bite, Jeremy. And I said, hold on, guys. I don't eat applesauce. And they said, and you don't have to. And they walked me out. And I was little, so I didn't know I didn't know this wasn't a good sign. Mom was like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it there? I was like, oh, not too bad. I didn't even have to eat applesauce, Needless to say, I did not get that role, but, you learn, like, maybe fake liking applesauce for a little while. My parents made an extra point to always keep things super normal. I think it's really easy for people to get the big head and think like, oh, I got a job outside of the house, so I don't need to take out the trash. Like, no, get your schoolwork, take out the trash, normal kid stuff. Because I mean, that's what it is. It's hard to get past boundaries and get past it's hard to get past preconceived notions of yourself if you already get the big head, So they were just like, nah, let's not start that shit. We always never really lived like above our means. Like we were regular middle class people, and just because I was making money, that's how we were living, just regular middle class people. And, like my parents never lived off of my income. Like it was already just put away. Like it was one of those things where like, for me, my whole reward was like, all right, if I get a call back, I can go to the toy store. I'm gonna get myself one little toy, keep it under $40, Jerry. All right, for sure, And that was enough. Like, I don't know, acting, it's such a cool art form that it's almost its own reward. So you don't really need to add nothing extra on it, I do it for free. Like it was a normal thing for me to leave like at lunch and go to auditions. And, that didn't really change at all until I got Bernie Mac show. And it only changed then because I was physically at set 5 days a week. So I couldn't go in. And for like, I think the first 3 months, it was one of those things where I was trying to maintain like a life at school, but we're like, nah, we can't do this. So that was when I transitioned over to homeschool. It was kind of cool because I had to sit down and like research who Bernie Mac was when that role came up, because like my mom was really excited. She was like, oh snap, you get to work with Bernie Mac. I'm like, who's that? So we sat down and we watched like some of his old comedy stuff, and I was like, wow, this guy is really funny. And at that point was when I knew I wanted the role, not because it was on TV or nothing, but I was like, man, this guy's really funny and he could teach me how to be really funny. We did like 3 or 4 auditions, and generally you only do 1 or 2. So the last 2 auditions were like on the same day. But for the most part, we had 1 audition initially. It was like with the casting director, kind of a normal audition, a callback. And then the next batch of them, we had like 1 in the morning, and it was kind of odd because most auditions aren't in the morning. Most of them are like in the afternoon. And so it was like maybe at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And then that night, had you gotten that audition knocked out and they wanted to see you back, they wanted to see you back at like 7 o'clock. So I remember having that kind of mean time, like that time in the middle where I wasn't sure if, because we were living in Pasadena, so it was like an hour away from where the audition was. So I wasn't sure if we were gonna go like all the way home or not. And I think like we were almost about to be heading back, and we got the call saying, no, stay in the area because they want to see you back. And I'd already done like a series at that point, so I was excited again because that was that was a really big moment for me when I did my first series. I did Built to Last, and it only came out for one one season, but we shot like 5 seasons. Wow. And so it was great practice. Like as a young kid to be able to shoot 5 seasons worth of TV, like it was great practice. And I was working with Royal Watkins, who's a comedian, and so that was like my pre-Bernie Mac training. So that's why I felt like, all right, once I got to Bernie Mac, all right, I can handle a series, I really liked the shooting process of when we were doing the Ribbon episode with the Eye of the Tiger, because I was working with some actual, she was a Russian gymnast coach. Like she was a real life, gymnast. And she was so serious. And we walked in there and we were playing too much because, it was just for acting for us, and she was not having it. She was like, jump higher, your legs must be straighter. And I was like, oh my God, this is so serious. So I think it really looks good because she was standing like right off camera, and she'd be like, this is not standing fingers, this is, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, she was super serious about it. He was joining gymnastics, and then Bernie initially thinks that he's gonna be joining something tough like rings or, no, he's out there doing the what is it called? Gymnastic dancing, I think with the ribbon event. Because there's like a whole bunch of different events, and they actually, we're trying to figure out like which one was the funniest. So I was like, I had the hula hoop at one point, and they're like, nah, that's not as funny as the ribbon. So that was a fun one to shoot. Because I was the only little boy on the set, Bernie always knew that like sitting still and not cutting up and, not getting into trouble was not really my thing. So he loved to be like, hey, Jeremy, cut loose. Like I had a bike on set, a BMX bike that I would ride anytime I was not on camera or in school. So I was trouble in real life. So that's what Jordan was to me. He was like this ball of energy, and it was fun to play it because I could just kind of go big, I actually had one kid one time who was like, man, I really like the fact that like you had glasses on TV, and I was a little black kid, and I never had, I never saw somebody with glasses. Like little stuff like that, man. Just seeing yourself, or seeing somebody who looks like you and is doing something that you want to do or doing something positive. I think Jordan, as a character, he was just a little ball of nerves. He was a ball of nerves, but I mean, in his defense, he had a really tough life in Chicago, and now he's just kind of put out of there and into this new world. And Bernie Mac's a tough dude. Like off camera he may be soft, but on camera he was a tough dude. And so there's a lot of pressure on him. He's a young black dude. He never had a father figure in his life. So I think he was just trying to make him proud. See, me and Bernie were super close, man. Like, Bernie was a giant dude. I always remember how big Bernie was. Like, when I first saw him, because I was 10, but I was playing 7. And I was really, really small. And I just remember seeing Bernie and being like, oh, you're a giant. Like, he was like wrestler size, Because we actually had like Triple H, we had the Stone Cold Steve Austin come on, and they were always like right there with Bernie. So I think it's kind of hard for people to actually realize like Bernie's a big dude. But he was a gentle giant, and he was cool as hell. Like he always had some cool saying. And so I just always looked up to him immediately, like to see not only this person who's really enjoying that career that I want, like that, that big life actor, but he's also a big old black dude. And it's like, that it gave me a lot of inspiration to see, not only black stars, to see black writers, to see black producers. Like that meant a lot to me, It made me think that it was possible for me. He said, I'm just a regular dude with an extraordinary job. And that was who he was. And that's who I'd want to be if I ever got to that level, because that's all we are. We're very lucky in order to be able to do our job. And if not for everybody out there watching us and actually enjoying the job that we do, we don't get the opportunity to do it. So we ain't better than nobody, especially the people who are working with us and contributing. Like we had a really tight-knit cast and crew on our set. And like everybody would eat lunch in Bernie's room. Like Bernie would get catering every single day. And in his dressing room, if you didn't bring lunch, I don't care if you was the best boy or the sound guy. If you wanted to go get some lunch, hey, go get some lunch. Bernie's got it. And that was, that was big. I mean, we were worried about him. I don't think we ever, I know I didn't know the severity of it. I didn't know anything about sarcoidosis at the time, so I didn't know that it was ultimately going to, be the end of him. But we were worried about him, and he was always adamant about putting on a strong face for everybody, because he didn't want to be the reason why nobody couldn't come back to work. We had over like 300 employees, working on the set. So he was like, I'm not going to be the reason why nobody has no job, So while we knew it was hard, he kept the brunt of it from us. For that last maybe last 6 months of filming, he was on oxygen. So Bernie was literally like, if we were filming here, there was an oxygen tank right there. So, and it had gotten worse, so we didn't know what was going to happen. But we always had a thing where no one ever said goodbye. We just walk out the door because we always knew he was coming back. And generally we'd be gone for about a 3-month break or so, and then we would come back and start filming again. So that 3-month break turned into a 4-month break. And we were like, what's going on? And that 4-month break turned into a 5-month break. And, at one point, maybe 6-7 months down the line, we got a call saying, oh, you're not coming back officially. So I wish the transition process was a little bit more official, because we never really got a chance to tell everybody, to give everybody their flowers and say, hey, this is the last time we're going to see everybody. But that was just kind of the nature of our set, and that's how we were, I had gotten a call maybe like a week prior, and that he was in the hospital. And I don't know. I never really thought it was going to be, like I said, Bernie was some like superhero figure to me, So I couldn't see him keeling over or anything. So so it was mostly just surprise when I heard, even when he was in the hospital. And I said, is he okay? And they go, yeah, they think he's okay. And 3 days later, they're like, oh, I said, is he out of the hospital? They said, no, he should be there a few more days. And then 2-3 days later, he was gone. So it was just a shock. Well, I mean, at that point, we were on our hiatus. That was that last kind of, I remember we all called each other, and we were all kind of just as surprised as we were. And we all got together. I'm trying to think whose house it was. It may have been Camille's house, where we all went and were, just kind of had this moment, to really celebrate him. And that's something we always did, even since he's been passed. Every year we go and have, dinner to commemorate him. So that was basically when that tradition started up, where we just realized that we have to celebrate Bernie, because the world will not know him like we knew him. They're going to know one part of him, but we were lucky enough to get close to him to actually know the whole Bernie Mac. So that's what we wanted to do. I mean, honestly, it was like back to the grind. It was back to auditions. Like, that's what we do anyway. I think, like I said, if when you're on a set, you always feel lucky. Like, I always felt lucky, because that means we made it past the audition stage, which is, can be grueling and it can be tiring. So I knew I would find another job, and I still do. So, I was never scared, no. It was a little bit rough, because I was in this age bracket where I looked like lower to middle high school age, but at that age, they would much rather hire somebody who's like 19 to play that age, because they don't have child actor laws. So not only are they not restricted to only working you 9.5 hours a day, they also don't have to hire a teacher. So it's vastly cheaper to hire an adult. And so everything really slowed down. And that was kind of hard for me, because I had never gone like 6 months without a job. I had never done that. And so I started to get like a little chip on me, because I was like, man, am I doing something wrong? Like, am I not going in and nailing these auditions? Like, is it not funny? Is it me? So I took a step back, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, you're doing what you say you don't want to do. You don't want to let people tell you how to feel about yourself. So don't let it, you know what I mean? Take your time. If if they're not ready for your greatness right now, Jeremy, okay, that's cool. Because you can be using your time valuably and going and learning not only about yourself, but learning about life. Because there's only so much life you could see on an acting set. Yeah. So that's what I did. I went out and I just lived a normal life. And that was really, it was cool because I had never done that before. I had never had like a normal job. And I wanted to go and kind of push myself. Like I said, you don't know if you're tough until you go test if you're tough. It took me about 2.5 years of kind of just going and kind of beating my head against the wall. And I was like, all right, this isn't working. So, like I said, I just started working, I started working a regular job. I actually was working with my stepfather at the time. He was a construction worker, and so I was like, all right, I can do what you do. And he's like, all right, let's go. I was working as a Boilermaker's apprentice. So basically, yeah, they were putting up power plants. So literally, like cleaning welds and hauling around tools. And I mean, it was good work. It's heavy work, but like I said, it kind of put some hair on my chest, man. It was like one of those things where like for the first like 2-3 months, they were trying to run me off. I could tell that they were like, this little kid. Well, just, they had the worst jobs for me. They say, oh, board meeting, kid. And I'd be like, what's a board meeting? Go pick up their boards and go take them over there. The boards would be as big as me. But then I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 months in, they were like, you know what? This guy actually works really hard. I think they had given me, those first 2 months, I was like inside the inventory shed. And all there was just heavy, heavy tools. I mean, we had big old chains and hooks that were like 85 pounds. And during that first 2 months, I cleaned it to where it looked like something out of a showroom, man. It was so, like, I was proud of it to the point where I was telling people, like, don't go in that room and mess it up. Grown men, don't you do it. So they got some respect for me. They eventually were like, all right, like, come on, we're going to take you up there and, start showing you the actual work, showing you how to weld and showing you how to do all the rigging and everything. And so for the last 7 months, that's all I did was just like walking around on beams and putting together metal structures and showing people that, hey, I may be an actor and I may got soft hands, but god dang it, I'm gonna use them to lift shit. I'm not scared, After that, it was working at a barbecue place. I was a line cook, and people ask me, you went from welding to cooking? I said, yeah, at this point, I'm not bothered by being burned at work. So it was just another like hot and heavy gig. And after I did that for maybe about a year, and I believe it was a Valentine's Day, and I was working salad station. And oh my God, it was salads. I think I may have cut open 100 lettuces that day, and I was like, all right, I'm done. All right, guys, I put in my time, boss, I'm out. So after that, I went directly over to retail. AT&T. Okay. I could sell anything. Like if you could convince people to change their cable plan, you're a wizard. You're a wizard. Because people really like knowing, like, oh, TBS is on channel 59. Like, they love the familiarity of it. But learning to talk with all these different people and learning how to do sales, that's what I did for the next year and a half. I always transitioned to a regular job and kind of lifestyle with a purpose of using that as like a fact-finding mission. You go out and you see all of these stuff. It's like an expedition. You go out and you see the world, and you take it and you make all of those things part of you, and you figure out, oh, okay, this is a character here. Like, there's so many little instances and funny ideas and just great shows that I've seen and I would have never seen if I stayed in Hollywood. And so I feel really incredibly lucky to have taken that chance, and luckily I had the ability to. So now once I do fully make that transition back, I have, like rappers got notebooks full of rhymes. I got notebooks full of script ideas and character ideas, and that's what I always wanted to do to go and get it. Love is the greatest thing ever, man. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. I got really lucky because I wasn't really a big party or anything, but one of my friends happened to know one of her friends, and our initial plans both got canceled that day, and somehow we ended up going to the same party with each other. And I think that may have been a Sunday. I called her on a Monday, and then I believe it was like Tuesday where I was talking to her on the phone, and my cousin walked by and he's like, "You're in love with that girl." And I was like, "No, no." He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna marry her, watch." And I was trying to be all hard, nah, not big pimping, not big pimping. But I mean, he was right, man. I think it was just kind of an immediate thing, and we never not talked after that day. We ended up moving in with each other after about 8 months. So we kind of did everything backwards, where we moved in we got together, we moved in with each other, and then we were dating for about 5 years before we got married. And it wasn't until we actually traveled across the country together, we said, all right, we can survive a road trip together. All right, we can make this thing work forever. Oh man, she's the calm, like logical one. She's the one who says, "Calm down, Jerry. Let's think this over. Let's give it 30 seconds. Let's, give it an extra eyeball over, but to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed." And I can't thank her enough. I never wanted to let that be a limiter. Like, oh, you can't do that and have a family. Oh, you can't be an actor and a husband. Oh, you can't be an actor and a father. No, you can do all of those things. Like, you just have to set your priorities right. And it changes up things a little bit as an actor, because if you're a husband or a father, you have to provide for people. And as an actor, the money is inconsistent, to be kind. But that's why I said it was always, for me, I always knew if I had a second job and I always had a second stream of income, then that should never be something that could stop me from being able to do what I love, which is acting and creating TV and movies. I would love to have a little acting baby. That'd be so awesome, because I got so many tips and tricks, Like, I mean, there's so many little stuff that you learn over the course of 20 years doing a job that you can pass on, Like, at this point, I can remember pages and pages of lines, like, quick, because I got, like, ways to do it now. So, I don't know. I think it'd be a shame if I didn't pass that on. Well, the main focus is just kind of reintroducing myself to Hollywood again and saying, hey, I'm here to work, and I have great ideas, and I'm not just what you think of me as. I'm that plus more. I'm that plus 2.0, So, it's really about coming in and not only nailing the roles that I get the opportunity to audition for, but also developing my own roles so that I can play the characters that I want to play, and I can give people the feelings that I want to give to them. Because I feel like there's not enough projects that at the end of it, as a young black man, you feel really good about yourself. Like, I would love to really focus on some of our untold contributions, like historical stuff that we haven't really dipped into creatively. I think that there's a lot out there that's still left to be told, and that's what I want to do. Once you play a role for so long, to certain people, or to a lot of people, hey, that's gonna be you. And I think you can either run away from it and try to be the exact opposite of that character, but not really. Like, a lot of the things that Jordan liked, I liked. Like, I'm a big nerd, but I also really like hip hop too. So I'm not as Jordan is one section of me. It's one little sliver of Jeremy. There's tons of different Jeremys though too. There's tough guy Jeremy. There's like dirt bike rider Jeremy. There's scuba diver Jeremy. So that's just one of the me's. And so I'm hoping that in the future I'll just get to show all the different parts of me. Man, you can't fake it, man. You can't fake it. Like, what I've learned in acting is that the best emotions you can bring up in yourselves are ones that are real. Yeah, you can act and put on this face for the camera or whatever, but it's gonna have cracks in it. Just kind of develop your actual face. Like, go out there and be a decent person. Try to see what what you're actually about and hold steady to that. And that's compelling. That's actually, that's something that people will latch on to. So that's what I've always tried to do. It's hard work. It's having self-confidence. I mean, no matter who you are or what you look like, hey, go out there and feel great about yourself, because if you don't feel great, you can't convince nobody else that you're great. You have to go out there and you have to work hard. Sometimes you may have to work 10 times harder, but that's okay. Learn to love hard work. I think Bernie would be proud, man. I carry myself in a way, or I try to at least, that, I have some dignity and I have some self-respect. And I think that the fact that I'm working a normal job to make sure I can, put food on my family table at all times, and, I'm not just sitting around like a bum, I think Bernie would be really proud of me. Even for the fact that I'm not on TV right now, that wouldn't, he wouldn't look down on me for that, nah. Because he would know that I got plans to get back, and if I got plans, that's gonna happen. Well, I think that somebody who leaves the earth 1% better than what they found it. Man, Bernie, he always talked about how he started, or he wanted to be a comedian because he knew that laughter kind of changes the world, man. Laughter was, it was such a positive thing. So if he could make one person laugh, he felt good. If he could make his mother laugh, he felt good. And I kind of feel the same way. Hey, if I can bring one person some little joy, then that's what I'll do. It's not about the money. It's not about the recognition. If one person likes it, that's why we did it.